Let's turn to Epstein just quickly. Want to make sure that we continue to track all of the turns of this investigation. So very recently, you'll remember Alex Acosta. Who was that? He was the labor secretary under Donald Trump in the first term. Prior to that, though, he's the infamous he's the prosecutor, the federal prosecutor, U.S. attorney, who gave the sweetheart non-prosecution agreement to Epstein back in 2007, where effectively the Palm Beach County PD was pursuing an investigation against Epstein. They said they didn't have the resources to be able to pursue it. They turned it over to the feds. The feds, some FBI agents and others said that they had a very clear-cut case against Epstein. Alex Acosta basically takes over the case and strikes a non-prosecution agreement with Epstein where he agrees to plead guilty to some very, very low-level charges, register as a sex offender. He gets to serve his time, basically in and out for work release in the Palm Beach County Jail. And that non-prosecution agreement eventually gets struck down in court in 2018 for violating the rights of the Epstein victims because they did not inform them of the sweetheart deal that they struck. Obviously, there's been a lot of questions. Why did Alex Acosta even do this? When he knew he would have violated the victim's rights, when he obviously, at least according to people who were involved in the case at the time, thought that they had a much more of a slam dunk case. There's been conspiracy. Allegedly, there's that quote attributed to him that, quote, he belonged to intelligence. That's potentially one avenue for why things went down. The other is that the Bush administration, people like Kenneth Starr and others, or Dershowitz, who was hired by Epstein's lawyers, basically put immense amount of pressure using money and special connections to convince it. But no matter what, we can all agree that deal was corrupt and it was ridiculous considering what they had, which the Department of Justice eventually said that Alex Acosta violated DOJ policy by pursuing that. Now, potentially scapegoating here. Well, all of that being said, Alex Acosta now recently appeared before the House Oversight Committee behind closed doors to answer some questions. And some of the members talked about how he was evasive, how he denigrated some of the victims, and how in a lot of ways he still does not accept responsibility for giving him that sweetheart deal. So let's take a listen to one of the first quotes from a legislator who was able to question Alex Acosta.
Congressman Dave Min out of California 47, and before coming to Congress, I was a law professor at UC Irvine. And I'll tell you, after the first hour sitting with Alex Acosta, I found him to be completely non-credible as a witness. His answers were evasive, they obfuscated, and they were just not believable. Just to give you one example, we know that his chief federal prosecutor, in addition to bringing a long charging memo and a prosecution memo, had actually said that the computer evidence that was being withheld by the defense at that point in time, all these files, the surveillance videos, perhaps child pornography, they were not producing it. She had said that that was a smoking gun that would put this whole thing to bed. When I asked Alex Acosta about this, his response was that he didn't actually review the evidence on this case and would have no input on this, which is just impossible to believe given the high-profile nature of Jeffrey Epstein at the time, given the fact that Alex Acosta was having meetings with the attorneys for Jeffrey Epstein, contemporaneous with all this. Completely non-credible. I doubt we'll get a lot of honesty out of him today, but what we're hoping to get is a roadmap to the types of evidence that we can demand from, as the Oversight Committee, from the Epstein estate, a roadmap to that, and of course we're going to continue to get, I believe, a lack of remorse, a lot of obfuscation out of Alex Acosta. Very frustrating, but we are going to get answers.
Evasive, didn't provide clear answers. I mean, this is a very important high-stakes interview because he's being transcribed under oath. He's going to be asked about intelligence, but a lot of the more important stuff is some of the background info of the basics of how he mishandled the case in the beginning. In fact, at sometimes claiming that he never even reviewed victim testimony before signing this deal. What does that tell you guys? Is that, in my opinion, this is my pure speculation, pressure from the top, get this to go away. That is, frankly, like, in what other trafficking investigation involving minors would you ever not review the testimony of victims?
Right.
How is that possible?
So his cope is basically like, oh, well, I didn't think these victims would stand up to scrutiny, and I was worried we wouldn't get a conviction at all. And so it's like, okay, well, then surely you closely reviewed the victim's testimony, right?
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Right.
And this really is like, this is sort of the core of where all the questions flow from about whether he's intelligence. What is it? Just that he was a rich guy and so he got this sweetheart deal? I mean, that would be an important thing to know. But look, we're not going to be Pollyanna about a two-tier system of justice in this country, but rich people do go to jail here sometimes.
Yeah,
like they do go to prison. They do, you know, have to like serve their time, and justice is served in instances even where there are wealthy individuals involved. So was it really just that he was so rich and had such a high-powered legal team, or was there something else going on here? Because we're talking about dozens of girls who had come forward at, you know, great risk and in very difficult circumstances, many of them who had very traumatic backgrounds to begin with, and all of that gets swept aside. And then, you know, something that is undeniable is that this agreement, this sweetheart deal, actively violated. I mean, a judge said this was illegal, actually violated those victims' rights.
That's the only reason
because
we know
it was
about
all
any of this.
done in secrecy. And the victims were not notified at all. They had no idea until Jeffrey Epstein is being escorted into the courthouse to this, and this thing was done and dusted.
It's totally crazy still in retrospect how it all happened. Like really, there's Occam's razor. Actually, no, not true. Because one of the allegation for why it didn't involve intelligence or government support is basically, yeah, he had really rich lawyers. I just don't accept that. If you talk to the FBI, or if you look at the interviews with the FBI agents, the Palm Beach County PD, the testimony that they had, it looked pretty damn clear. And remember, they had an indictment prepared against him before the non-prosecution agreement. Now, Alex Acosta says we didn't think it would hold up in court. A lot of the FBI agents on the case disagree. By the way, still have never been able to review that indictment, so I have no idea. So I would love for that to be, released. That would be part of the Epstein files. Number two is that there was a call from Maine Justice to make this go away. So let's explain. Alex Acosta, U.S. Attorney for Southern Florida. Well, the number two over at the DOJ, who is, you know, amenable to pressure for the, at the time, Bush administration. You have Kenneth Starr, the famous lawyer, special prosecutor or whatever involved in the Clinton case, who is able to work the government. And then that's where the potential potential intelligence connections, I'm going to choose my words carefully, could come into play where they call Acosta and they're like, listen, man, you need to make this shit just go away. And again, considering how the CIA and intelligence offices have done that before in pedophile-related cases, it doesn't seem outside the realm of possibility. It's just an empirical fact. They have used their pressure on the Justice Department to protect intelligence assets caught up in pedophilia because they don't want sources and methods to be revealed in open court. That's just the truth.
Yeah.
You know? So I don't know. It could be a combination of all of the above, right? But the point is that that's why this is a case that you must dig into.
The other possible, like, I don't know if you'd call this an innocent explanation, but you have talked about how Epstein was in Israel while this was all being negotiated.
That's true.
And so possible that there was an implicit or explicit threat of like, if he doesn't get a deal that he's willing to accept, he's just not coming back. And then you have this like global kerfuffle about this pedophile and Israel's harboring him. And, obviously we don't want to upset that relationship. So they just decided, okay, well, let's give him the sweetheart deal that he'll agree to. So he'll come back and at least serve some sort of time and we can just make all of this go away.
Yeah.
That would be another like quote unquote sort of innocent explanation that doesn't require him to be directly Mossad or CIA for that threat of like, I'm just going to stay in Israel and you're not going to be able to get me back whatsoever. And it's going to be this big, messy international diplomatic fight if you do try to get me back.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's true. I mean, even his timeline in Israel is very unclear. It was reported by Vicky Ward. The rumor was that he had fled to Israel with all of his assets. He called her and he was like, actually, I'm back in New York. Would you want to live in Israel? Kind of talking back. We know from Palm Beach Post, local media, that he arrived back in the United States from Israel around the time of all of this. So it's true. He was there. We know that for sure. Whether those threats and all that were made, we don't know. I've talked about here with the Alexandrovich case about how extradition basically doesn't exist between the U.S. and Israel, especially for any Jewish American. You can just flee there. And I mean, it took, there was a recent case, it took a decade to bring some guy back. And there's actually some pedophiles from the 1980s who are living there with total impunity and have faced no justice and no extradition whatsoever. So yeah, you're right. It definitely could be. Last thing that we wanted to show everybody here is just from the lawmakers themselves about his evasiveness. Let's take a listen.
Can you share what you've learned from Alex Acosta so far? I just stepped out of the transcribed interview with Alex Acosta. We'll be heading back in. We've had several hours of questioning where primarily we are trying to, first of all, understand why Alex Acosta struck such a sweetheart deal for Jeffrey Epstein, why he helped Jeffrey Epstein evade the law. And I'm going to be quite honest with you. Thus far, Alex Acosta does not seem to be a credible witness to me. He is extremely evasive, very difficult to get straightforward answers out of him regarding what happened during this time, what he knew of the relationship between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, why he only focused on a single state prosecution, did not charge Jeffrey Epstein for federal crimes.
So very important, from the testimony of the legislators and others, hoping that the transcript and all of that is made available very quickly.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.